And it is Wednesday, so you know what that means. Time for Woke Women Wednesday. Welcome everyone to 54 Park. That's right. We're on Facebook, WWOCMediaRadio.com. And so everybody's listening to us right now. My name is Dianne Wilkerson. My fierce and fearless co-host, city councilor. Every week I introduce her in the morning in the same way. The warrior, city councilor, Julia Mejia. And you're going to hear from her in a minute. I just want to do the hellos, right? And here's what I say every Wednesday. 2 years ago, these three sisters and a brother had a vision, and they knew how important it was for us to have a medium to relate, get information. This was before COVID. This wasn't even about COVID, but boy, were they right on time. Every Wednesday since then, we've been here, Welcome Wednesday. And for the first time in 2022, in March, for Women's History Month, we took the show on the road. We spent 4 weeks every Wednesday in March in 2022, moving around the city in our neighborhood restaurants, sister-owned, black-owned, and we had a ball. And we said we'd be back, right? And here we are. So this is special for us tonight. Those of you who watch and know that we've had some of the baddest sisters from all over the country, from all over the state, from all over the city. I see some of you in here, and we're going to holler you out tonight. But tonight, for the first time, Woke Women Wednesday, we are featuring all male guests. And we want to talk about some of the things that are happening in Boston and the brothers who are making it happen. And why wouldn't we start with Sugar Italy, right? The chief. He's the chief. The chief. Economic opportunity inclusion. I'm going to turn it over though to my colleague, as I said, my fierce and fearless city council warrior, Julia Mejia, so she can do her welcomes too. And we're going to get right into it. And as our second guest arrives, we'll introduce this book right now. Let's get it off. Welcome.
I'll be real quick because I don't want to stand in the way of this amazing panel that we're going to have tonight. But I just want you all to recognize and sit in the moment of where we are right now. Park 54, Black owned, here in the heart of Hyde Park. And if we're talking about economic empowerment and inclusion, what better way to kick off this conversation with the folks who have been behind the scenes, right? Fighting even before they step foot in City Hall, right? To back my other initiatives here in the city of Boston to make sure that Black and brown folks move ahead. And that is why tonight is really special. Because we're sitting, and you're a Hyde Park resident too. Hyde Park all day, every day. So I am really excited to be here with you all. And yes, you know what? It is Woke Women Wednesdays. But we also have to recognize that the men that love us, that stand up for us, that show up for us, also need a space. And so I hope this is not just the first and one and only, and we do this every once in a while, but that we make this a part of our philosophy. Because you already know I always talk about all means all. And that means all of us creating space. So I am excited and encouraged, and I look forward to having more men joining us. Don't get too comfortable though. We'll invite you and let you know when you're showing up. But right now, let's just see how these two do, and let's see if we're gonna keep bringing them back. How about that? How about that? Yeah? That sound good? Let's the tryout. And I'm sorry for being late. Y'all know that today was the big budget for the city council. So should I kick off with the first question? Right, let's kick off with the first question. For those who've been following me, Bernie and I put on somebody else's glasses, right? My own. But can we just start off as the economic and opportunity inclusion, and former director of BECMA, and everybody knows you well. Everybody knows the work that you've been doing here in the city of Boston. And everyone also knows the challenges for Black and Latino, Black and brown businesses here. And, folks who are coming into this city to build wealth, entrepreneurs, you name it. What are you going to do? And what are you hoping to do different? So contracts like the 17 million with City Fresh and BPS aren't just a one and done situation, that we see more of that here in the city of Boston. And what can we do to help support that mission and vision?
Well, first of all, good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. All right, it's great to see all of you tonight. Before I answer the question, I just want to say that I understand this is special for me to be here, but it's also special to me to be here with two people that I admire, particularly with the senator who has been a mentor, and a lot of the things that I've done. I can never claim success for anything that I've done. It's really what's important to me from people who have been doing this work and are still doing this work to this day. And so I just want to publicly thank you for all that you have shared with me. Our city councilor at large, who has laid the foundation for me to be able to go and make a couple of things happen within this short amount of time, and make it possible for all of the work that she did to make sure that folks like myself could be in this position, fighting alongside someone like my person. So before I just talk about what we're going to do different, I want to talk about even how I was introduced. So if I were here a year ago, so my name is Dianne, if I were here a year ago, so if I were here a year ago, I would have said we're being introduced as the Chief of Economic Development. And you heard a much longer title this evening. You are all right, welcome to WWOC. So you'll notice the name has been changed. It's much longer, and this is what we do in government. We make things much more cumbersome, difficult to understand. But we changed the name of Opportunity and Inclusion for one reason. When a lot of people, particularly Black and brown people, hear the term economic development and think about it, it's received negatively. Because what people think about when they hear the term economic development, well, first of all, they see the cranes in the skies, all the development happening in our communities. And they think about the conversations that we're having every day around gentrification and displacement of communities that we built. And so what was important to myself and to Mayor Rudy was that before people meet me or anybody on my team, that they understand what it is that we're doing and who we're doing it for. And so while our work is to create and foster these opportunities for everyone to have access to, what's important is that inclusion piece. Everything undergirding the work that we're doing has a focus on racial equity. And I'm emphasizing the racial piece, which is going to, in a little bit, kind of address this question about what we're doing different, because a lot of us now either hear or use the term equity in almost every other sentence that comes out of our mouth. It is a popular word to use and to justify anything that we're pushing for. We are intentional about pushing for racial equity, because the reason that we're even talking about equity is because all of us witnessed a lynching 2 years ago, the murder of George Floyd. And that's what erupted, or caused us in this country to even talk about and think about this notion of equity, and to realize all of the disparities and gaps in services to our communities. So we are very clear about who it is that we're serving, because we know that when we are supporting Black and brown communities, everybody else benefits. I've never seen in history where it's working in reverse. And that's why we're having these conversations today. So when I think about what we're doing differently, it's even just that focus, which is totally new, as I'm sure you know, serving for the 2 years prior, and the Senate for the work that you did in the state Senate, that this is totally new of how we've been focused on producing our policies and programs and initiatives.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think it's really important for us to recognize that unless you name it, you can't claim it, and unless you claim it, you can't really do something about it. And I think that intentionality about leaning in to race, especially here in the city of Boston, right, is about calling that name, putting that elephant in the room, and then figuring out how we're going to eat an elephant. And that's one piece at a time. And that's the real work. And I think that is why I'm so encouraged about what we bring to the table because you've been on the other side. And I think that that sense of lived experience changes the way you move. So I always talk about being a little chihuahua on the council because I'm always barking. But it is really about we get tired because we keep saying the same thing, expecting different results, and the only thing that changes are the characters. But our quality of life does not. And so this is really a call to action and a call to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that we deliver and that we work in collaboration to ensure that that piece of the racial equity doesn't get lost in the conversation. And I know you're going to bring that to the table, and that's why I'm so encouraged. And not only are you here with us today, but that you're here with us in this work. So thank you.
So, in between our presentations this evening, clap for that.
You can clap for that.
In between, I'm going to do a few commercials if you would spare me. So, just for those of you who do not know, it just so happened in March when we were celebrating Women's History Month, it was the week that Ketanji Brown Jackson was going through the Inquisition, for lack of a better word. And so it seems fitting that on the night that we're sitting here this evening, it turns out to be the eve of her swearing in. Judge Friday is secondary 12 o'clock noon tomorrow, and she is going to be sworn in as a Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States of America immediately afterwards. So let's give a hand for Karen. History. I actually want to talk to the chief of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion about City Fresh contract as a marker. For those of you who may or may not know, last month, the Boston Public Schools signed a $17 million contract with City Fresh Food to provide food to our children. And there's so many different reasons why that's significant, right? Just in 2021, when Phillips and Associates received the Boston marketing contract for Boston, was the largest non-construction project ever afforded to a Black business owner in the city of Boston in its 50 million year history, right? And so that was the largest, which means it's 17 million, and that was 2 million. That means a $17 million contract is a whole lot larger, and it's cause to celebrate. But you said something that day, and I had the privilege to be there at the press conference that, and Counselor already said it. You see, the only good thing about being the first is that there's a second. Otherwise, you're just the only one. Right? So the fact that in this short period of time, we've seen two, and mind you, we still should be happy about that. We have a long way to go, but I do think that it is important that you talk about how you got to a $17 million contract for City Fresh, because they've been out there tolling for a long time. And I know from experience, you know, that they were our go-to during COVID, providing meals to conduct our kids who are out of school and to all of the nonprofits. But talk about that. How do we get there? How do we get there again and again and again?
So, for those who may not know, so City Fresh is a Roxbury-based, Black-owned, Black-founded, employee-owned food service company that provides meals before July 5th of next year. Sorry, thank you. Before July 5th of next week, has been feeding our seniors, our daycares, our after-school programs across the city for years and years, and not just Boston, but across the Commonwealth. I'm just going to say at the top, City Fresh Food won a contract to serve the 50,000 students in Boston. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people think that we should get leaders of color and we're just doling out stuff to people who are not deserving. But this business has already been serving our community for years and years. They want a competitive process because they had the best proposal to feed our kids healthy food that they can do. And the others did not have that best proposal. So it's worth $17 million. It starts next Tuesday. But as the senator said, Boston has this unique history of believing itself to be the most liberal and progressive city in the union. And there's not a lot to compare ourselves to, so maybe that might be true for meeting the bare minimum. But the problem in Boston is that we don't believe too much in symbolism versus substance. And so whenever we get these singular one-off wins, we spend the next 20 years celebrating that one win, and nobody else benefits. And so the senator's right, and the councilor's right. These one-offs don't matter anymore. The reason why we're in the positions we're in is because we are coming from frustrated communities that are tired of celebrating something from 20 years ago. So a couple of the strategies that we've been taking within our cabinet, I manage 6 different departments for 100 employees, and our Department of Supplier and Workforce Diversity are employing several strategies. One is at the top of the budget cycle in January of this year, every single department had to submit, along with their budget, an equitable procurement plan. What that means is that if you're writing your budget and you're saying you're going to give $10 million up in contracts, I want to know how much of that money can go to diverse businesses here in the city. And what that allows us to do is then populate something called the City Buy-in Plan, which will come out later this year, which will give every single entrepreneur in this firm the opportunity to see what contracts are coming up over the next 3 or 4 years to help prepare themselves. In addition to that, we have something called the Sheltered Market Program. And what this means, this is something in national laws that allows us to essentially say, because of the disparity study that was conducted last year, that because we found a disparity study, these contracts can only be awarded to Black and brown companies or women companies, etc. And so these strategies are going to help us ensure that, because I make sure for my team, if it doesn't have 6 figures, I don't care about it. If it's 6 or 7 figures, we're going to talk about how we put these contracts in this program to guarantee that Black and brown people are going to get these or be awarded these contracts. So these are a couple of the strategies that we're employing. But to take vigilance.
So just ask show of hands, how many of you here have a business? Just so you get a sense. See, more than half the room, for those of you who are watching Zoom, you can't see. More than half the room raised.
If there were as many men as there were women, you would still see that many hands for women than men. Because one reason I'm not going to be able to talk about small businesses is the fact that Black women in the country are the fastest growing set of entrepreneurs for the last 5 years. And it increased exponentially during COVID. And so our work is to make sure that we are honoring those efforts, which are not only providing support for your families, but for your community. And it's anytime the mayor, the governor stand up and say, we have a healthy economy, you're the reason that it exists. Not because of the work that we're doing, because of your ingenuity and your resilience to make these businesses grow.
That's right. That's right. Can we give it up for that? I do want to just switch things up on people, and I'm going to switch things up on people, and I'm going to ask Martin to join us. Okay? And the executive director of Keep Boston you're also a dope man doing dope things here in the city of Boston. So I'm going to take you out of your comfort zone and ask you to join us. Yes, don't be shy. Let's do it.
Yeah, just grab it up. Grab it up. Marcellus Jeffers, everyone.
Listen, yes.
See, we like to grab people out. Ladies know we do this.
We do this. We do this, right? Because
It didn't work.
You have to recognize that when we have men in the city of Boston who are moving Boston forward, right? We have to create space for them to also talk about the amazing work that they're doing. Whether you are prepared to be on the show, you don't have to sign a guest release. It's all good. You are here. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about, what you just did during the Embrace Festival and how we're moving people forward. You should.
Good evening, everyone. Good
Good evening. I don't get clapped up like Shaguna. Shaguna is my brother. The big difference tonight is I got a fresh haircut and he doesn't. I was telling him earlier today. We are brothers and neighbors. We both live in Hyde Park, two houses down from each other. So Park 54 is like blessing. It's like a gem in our neighborhood, both Hyde Park and the city. I'm so glad that you're hosting the event tonight. And I also want to start off by giving props to the senator, who's been a mentor and role model for me. I was at a few Juneteenth festivals, and someone was telling me about how they trace their lineage of leadership. And I'm interviewing as one of the people who actually that lineage of leadership through. So I appreciate all of you for us. And also our city councilor, who I feel like has been an OG since day one. And I feel like you are an honorary Hyde Parker to me. And so you always got a place on Hyde Park Ave with us. And so thank you for allowing me impromptu to be on the show. So I think I'm excited to talk about our work. You know, Shaguna and I have been allies and friends in this work. King Boston is a memorial that we're building to honor the Kings and 65 other Bostonians who were in the ecosystem of doing the work before the Kings got here and after the Kings left. And so we will be honoring the Kings and 65 Bostonians who were active in the movement from 1950 to 1975. But our work is really centered around symbols, monuments, and memorials, and how they work in the background to say who belongs, who doesn't belong, whose city is that this belongs to, who's welcomed, who's not welcome. So I'm excited about our work and excited to be partnering with the two of you and the chief to create a Boston where all of us, especially folks that look like us, feel like that this is our city. Yeah, and so people don't know this, but the Kings met here as college students. And so their love story started here. If it wasn't for Boston, there would be no Kings. And so they met here as college students. They returned in '65, and so towards the end of Dr. King's life, one of his final campaigns was the 1965 Freedom Rally campaign in Boston. And so there were 5 issues in Boston that were problematic in '65. They were housing, education, racial equity, and poverty. So I think if you think about the problems in Boston today, those are still the challenges in Boston. So the organization decided to build a memorial to honor the Kings, but also think about the importance of monuments. So there are 430 monuments in this country that are named after Confederate generals. There are 240 schools in this country that are named after Confederate generals. In Massachusetts, there's one monument in the Cape that's named in honor of Confederate generals. So we know the power and importance of monuments and memorials. And for a city that the Kings met, there's barely a placard or a sign that memorializes their history here. So we know that when we don't see ourselves, we're made to believe that we were never here or we had no contribution to our city and our work. So this memorial is the first of many memorials that we'll be building and memorializing that represent our legacy and our history. So I'm excited about that.
And it was a total accident, totally accidental that Sagan and Amani would be sitting here and our next guest, because there's now this whole MLK thread that is airing through this panel this evening, not by accident. But I just want people to understand that there's a lot of stuff going on and that we don't get to see because our media, other than WWOC, right, doesn't always show us. But there's some people running stuff. That's the bottom line. We got some brothers running stuff. And that's important. And doing good stuff. And we're gonna get Reverend Broderick. We're gonna get Reverend Broderick up here. You know, I have to tell you, you can do some party. You get your last word.
At least the website. How can people join
Yes.
Let people know.
And so you can find us on kingboston.org. And so the other thing about the King legacy is that Dr. King and Mrs. King, when they were here, they had a home church.
and that home church was 12th Baptist Church. And so I'm excited to relinquish the seat to the pastor of 12th Baptist Church, the senior pastor, and the CEO of TAC, Pastor Reverend Willie Bodger.
Wait, are we looking at a co-host for Walk
You know, it really wasn't intentional, but you see this thread, right? And when we did the promo for tonight, we didn't say Reverend Willie Bodger, the senior pastor of 12th Baptist Church. We said new president and CEO of TAC, the American Cities Coalition, right? Because that's the one that's about the business and about the money, right? But understand, can I just tell this story about 12th Baptist? Because this is part of our history. Again, we don't talk about this very much. But in that same time frame that Amani's talking about, I'm a Black Boston, buck. I'm learning every day. But part of the history is that at one point the federal government tried to do right. They turned over hundreds of apartment units in our community to our churches. There was a whole group of church apartments that were given to St. Mark's. And you know it now as Marksdale Gardens. There was a whole bunch of property given to Charles Street A&E Church. They no longer own it. It's now called Charlene Park 1 and Charlene Park 2. That's those buildings on MLK Boulevard that you drive by every day up from Popeye's Chicken. There was a whole group of property given to Union United Methodist Church called Union Manor in the South End, right? And on Columbus Avenue. But the church does not own that anymore. The only church that's still holding on to the property that was given to them is 12th Baptist Church. And that's significant, you should know that. So, without any further ado, our guest for this evening, another powerful brother, as I said, not only the senior pastor at 12th Baptist Church, but also the new CEO and president of the American Cities Coalition, otherwise known as TAC, located right in Union Square, upstairs from the Black Market, right? So I want you to, welcome our guest, Reverend Robin, President, CEO Robin, and then have him talk about how does this all fit into this discussion about racial equity that Council talked about, social justice and economic empowerment. Take it away.
So thank you. First of all, thank you all for having me. Thank you so much, Councilor. Thank you. I'm glad to be here with my partner in the work of justice and Shebang, our chief, we gotta say that, our chief of economic inclusion and opportunity. The work for me starts at the core of my faith. I always start with Micah 6:8. What does the Lord require of you? To do justice, to love mercy, and walk humbly before your God. And so I sense for all that I do, whether it's at 12th Baptist Church, whether it's in government at one point, whether it's at a law firm, whether it was now here at TAC, by doing the work of justice. And I think as we're talking about this moment of history in which we're living in, we can't talk about racial justice without acknowledging what we just experienced. We just experienced probably one of the most horrific times in at least my lifetime. And we saw the exacerbation of the ills that we've already been experiencing, right? Economic de-investment, dealing with healthcare. I want to shout out Senator for the work that they were doing on COVID, but the work that we all had to do together, because it took a village. And there was no competition. It was about how much more can we add to the work, right? I think that's one of the things that I hope that we're working towards is actually partnering and collaborating and doing that work across spaces and not competing. There's no competition when you get work. The more good work, the more things get done. And so I think the way in which we're looking at this moment is how do we respond and how do we bounce back? In both of the spaces, it's about reimagining, it's about re-envisioning, it's about rebuilding and reinvesting. And the way in which I'm looking at it, there is two purchase on us to hold at 12 Baptist as well as attack. Is how do we reimagine a community where we can ensure that we are not left out? We've experienced that for far too long. No matter where you are, no matter what community black and brown folks are in, we should not be left out. We should not be left out of care. We should not be left out of prosperity. We should not be left out of justice. And on every front, we need to be having these conversations of how do we not only be at the table, but included in the deal. Like being included in the conversation, right? That they're not talking about us, but they're talking to us. And I think that's why it's so important to have people like Shagun in the place where you are. Shout out to Amari for the work that he's doing to help us rethink the reimagining process. Good to have folks on the council who are vocal, like Councilor Mejia, who are vocal about what's happening and making sure that things aren't sliding by. So it's important for us, one, to know who's with. Right? We need to be talking with one another. It's why these conversations you all are having are so important. One of the biggest problems we have is our disjointed dynamics amongst us. And so how do we actually create inclusion? How do we actually create community amongst each other so that we're a unified front when we're actually going into these conversations? And then we can actually hold each other accountable. Because I know that. Like I ain't gonna blast you, but I can pull you aside and say, we need to have a conversation. And so I think this is what I'm hoping for in this moment, that we think big. I was at a conference last week and the lady said it takes the same energy to think small as it does to think big. What's the big idea? What's the big plan that ensures that not only do those who always keep doing what they're doing, we got good businesses to keep on going, but that we open up opportunities for folks who've been dreaming for generations. Right? People who've been asking for opportunity for a long time. How do we make sure they're included in this? One of the things that we're trying to do in Deviant Square area is making sure we're thinking critically about development, about economic development. That's why I'm so excited about Shagun is where he's at, because we can think big about it. How do we actually bring vitality to our community? I was a little upset on Saturday. I had some friends out from San Jose. They were here in the neighborhood. Took them around to our practice, walked them around Oxford. They were so excited. They were like, what are we going to eat? Can I tell you the sad part? There was nowhere to eat. There was no brunch place. There was nothing. That was some $300-400 that left our community because there wasn't anything there. And so how do we make sure that I don't have to go down to South End, I don't have to go down to Seaport, I don't have to go down to Beacon Hill to get a decent meal and to celebrate and have brunch and all the other things that we like to do. We like to do that. We like to have a good time, celebrate, kick back, relax. I like that. I don't know about y'all. Y'all quiet in the church for a minute. I'm going to work this crowd a little bit. I'm going to work this. I'm messing. But seriously, we need to have a part of this. One of the things we're doing in the secret attack, we're really talking about how do we make sure that this city is ours. Not just a separated city that's among us, but how do we own some of that? How do we get a part of it? There's only one black business over there. That needs to change. Right? How does that Seaport walkway belong to us as well? So we've been doing that work. We already started paying folks over since 2017 before I even got this position. And the next place is how do we make sure that employment, opportunity, we're not just going to expose people to the Seaport. We need to have access, opportunity, investment in the Seaport. So we need jobs. We need jobs. We need more businesses over there. We need more pop-ups over there. We need to bring ourselves to that space just as much as we need to have that same vitality in our community. So I'll stop right there. There's a lot to talk about, but I would love to engage this crowd with those issues.
And we're here for all of it, right? We're here for all of it. And one of the things that I'm so incredibly encouraged by, and this is something that I always say out on the streets, is that nothing about us without us is for us. Okay? And the fact that you are looking and already leading, we're recognizing and bringing people in who have been historically left out is what I believe this moment calls for. And I'm so glad that you are leading with that intentionality, because we belong in every space, not just the ones that they open up for us to occupy. And I say this, and I'm encouraging us to recognize that this right in this moment right now, we have Black men in their different ways, whether it be the nonprofit sector, government, working on the national and federal level, moving the needle. But they can't do it without us. So when we talk about nothing about us is for us, without us, that means us making sure when it's time to show up in city council, when it's time to go fight on the state house, when it's time to support a nonprofit organization, that we show up, because that is the only way as a collective that we can bring, which is you talked to us a little bit about some of the coalition building that you're envisioning as you continue to move forward with this work.
And I just, before you answer that, just for you all get ready, I'm told that we have time to take a couple of questions from the audience. So think about that while the president CEO is answering that question.
So one of the things I think we always do, and we're actually working through this. I've been in the job now 3 weeks, and we've already been in this kind of strategic rethinking how we do things, but also capturing the good things we've already done. Right? One of the things we've done right now, we didn't start by telling people what we were going to do. We engaged in capacity. What do you desire? What do you want? What do you want out of this? Before we were going in there telling people how to take this secret, they always think, what do you want? What do you already know? Right? Because we come so many times from a place of conversation that it's not partnering, it's telling people. And what we began to figure out when we were starting these conversations early on was that, the problems are very much related. It was that, some people had never even been over to the seaport. Some people didn't know we had buses that went straight from Roxbury into the seaport. Some people had not been anywhere. One of the biggest asset that we grew up was the Children's Museum. But people had never been to the ICA. Right? If you remember, in that area, it was nothing but parking lots when I first got to Boston. It was literally Anthony Pier Floor, bunch of parking lots, and the ICA. You could see all the way down to the financial district. That's all it really was. And so people have that still in their memory. And can't even imagine outside of the front page of the Boston Globe when you see all of this economic boom that's happening. I heard a stat this year: a 1-bedroom in Seaport costs $2 million. That's a different reality where the area median income in our neighborhood is still around $34. And so we have to continue to have these serious conversations to engage, to actually have a conversation on how do we get people to tell us what they desire, what they want, what are the barriers. Because the people already know what the issues are. They just need to be able to get voice, have space, and we need to work collaboratively with them to create systems, processes, as well as structures that will hopefully close those gaps.
So can I say something about Council Mejia? Because one of the things I think we don't always appreciate, that all of the things we're talking about are related. And when you talked about being there and being present, it is reminding me of really what is happening right now in the city of Austin in the last week. We are in a series of different crises with our public school system. Some people think that's a permanent place for us, but the children always want to be our focus. Why is that today? Because we are looking for a new school superintendent, right? We did a national search and offered the job to our next door neighbors who were already there when we started. 55,000 students of color, we couldn't find any person of color to be a finalist. And the first person who issued a statement questioning the fact that there was no people of color in the finalists was City Councilor Dianne Wilkerson. I saw her statement within an hour of that announcement. Here's the problem, as I said, with being the first. There wasn't a second. Haven't seen another one. Not another elected official has joined her publicly. Not one. Wow. That's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem.
That's a problem next year when I go run again. They're like, oh, that was the big round.
No, but I mean, I have to say that because this is connected to education is integral, it's intimately connected. Do we have 8 minutes left? So I really do want to give you all a chance. It's down to 6. We just lost 2. So let me do this.
You're talking too much, Diane. I'm just letting you know.
Let me do this because I have assignment. I gotta ask for the money, and that I can't not do because this is the other thing that we forget, right? This ain't free. It's beautiful. It's nice, and we're moving around. We never had a real opening for WWOC because they started in COVID. So never had a capital campaign, but I see a donation box on that table. And I'm asking you all to think about that. That's right, we do it too.
Can't leave unless you
But also, we take pledges because we really do have to raise some serious money to keep this up. This is so important. The information we've had, so many of the sisters, like I said, I see Sharice Perry's here. She talked about how you manage court during COVID. We had her on talking about what people should do, right? We had four chiefs, Aisha, to sit in the back. That's right. We had her on talking about how to manage and maneuver through a system, a city system that often is not friendly at all. We would never have been able to do a drive-in for our kids during COVID had it not been for Chief Miller, right? Because the system getting through all the permits can be so cumbersome. So just know that this is all related. So when Councilman Mejia does something that you all support, ain't nobody know it. The only people who were there when you clapped them is you, right? Or you saying, go ahead, girl. No, you got to say that to somebody else, right? So that she knows, they know she's speaking for all of us. Because the reality is, we should have started all over with this search candidate process. No surprise, but no surprise. Question. There's one. Yes, sir. I saw you. No. I saw you pump up this one. You said I have a question. She said yes.
Yes, I'm really excited. Hi, greetings everyone.
I'm gonna repeat it. So scream loud and I'm gonna repeat it.
You use my mic.
Okay.
Use your own voice.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Karen. My question is, normally with inequity, we see that a lot of the barriers are in the green system, right? And then one of the barriers that we do have is a lack of spread of information. So kind of combining both of those barriers together, what do you advise or what can you speak to in terms of entrepreneurs, future entrepreneurs, in terms of how to present themselves, right? Things to be concerned about, or to think about how we can kind of like
So I appreciate that question. So if you couldn't hear the question, it was around barriers. How can we help entrepreneurs in the process of growing and expanding? I know I put all these words in your mouth. That's the sense I got from you guys. So this is what I would say when I was at Back as well. Whenever we talk about barriers to Black and brown people advancing, we always talk about the lenses of efficiency in us. And I just want to say, I think we are perfectly fine. The issue, like for instance, we talk about capital. We say access to capital. A lot of people know where the money resides. The issue is not about finding where those things are. It's about the people who hold that capital, dispersing the capital to the people who have earned the right to have finances, right? So I'll just say that when I think about the barriers on our end, it's not about what is wrong with the entrepreneur. It's about, we ask 3 questions that we now have in our head because of the District 7 City Councilor, Anderson, who in my first hearing, we were requesting $5 million for grant dollars to small businesses. She asked, is it a law? Is it policy? Or is it just the way we've always done things? And then she, I love Tanya, so she can be like, this is just stupid. Right? So every time now that we're looking at a policy or an initiative or trying to move money here or support that entrepreneur, for us it's asking those 3 questions so that we understand what the barriers are on our side. I think entrepreneurs, you can't trip on a crack in the sidewalk that Public Works fixed 2 years ago without falling in front of an organization that provides some support to entrepreneurs. There are so many organizations that are helping Black and brown entrepreneurs, enhance their business or how, all the things that we said. And yet they still, after all that, don't get what I believe they justly deserve. And so that's why I look on my end about how when I'm in a room that is completely different from this, that they look more like the lights, and the people who are sitting here, more like the walls, and I don't change what I'm talking about. And the fantastic thing about being in this role, well, I know this is whatever. I've only been here for 6 months, so I'd be saying stuff that maybe I'll get in trouble, but whatever. But it's like people who weren't picking up my phone calls a year ago, within 30 seconds, all of a sudden, I remember, if I can just say, there was a very important player in the market that has a lot of money who would not answer my calls or texts. We had a meeting and they said, I see what you can do for me. And I was promoting, getting Black businesses contracts. The day after it was announced that I was going to be taking this position, I saw this person at a local restaurant. They were sitting all the way where you're sitting right there. I walked in, the couple folks I know, this person stood up, walked across the room and said, oh, Shagun. First of all, I didn't know I said my name before. Like, oh, Shagun, so good to see you, congratulations. I said, they must all be on a Zoom class learning how to say my name, Shagun. So anyway, so my point is that when I think about the barriers, it's not about on the other side. I think that entrepreneurs are taking the necessary steps to do better and be better. My job is to make sure that we are meeting the moment and giving you what you need.
One more question. One more question. One more. Ms. Donna?
I'm Donna Hastings. I work for the Boston Public Schools, but I'm a community activist. I work for family engagement. And so as I hear this conversation here, my question to you is, how do we provide the access and opportunity for our students to learn at an earlier age about this, so that as they begin to think about where their path for educational journey, their educational journey is, how do we continue to help them think that through all the way to 12 college and beyond? And so, and then how do we also do that for our families who are trying to build their own businesses as well?
Thank you so much. Outside of the official capacities I take I work in the opportunity chief of that task force for Boston Public Schools. And I'm glad to serve in that capacity for the past few years. And I've tried to be an ardent advocate for not only our children, but making sure that we're centering not only the opportunity and access, but making sure that we can bring children up out of the gaps. Particularly those kids who have a very different experience than the peers, than many of their peers. Also, I serve as a part of the Black Student Network for Black Student Achievement, Boston Black Student Achievement. But I think one of the things that we haven't had a serious conversation about in the city is what this means for workforce development locally. There's a lot of prosperity in the city. We are the biotech hub, not only of the country, but the world. The world. Boston is the biotech hub of the world. And there isn't a clear pipeline from kindergarten to a career in the city as we speak right now. We have some of the best hospitals in the world. And our healthcare sector is still not hiring us at the rates in which they should. And so we have to have a serious conversation around what's happening in middle school jobs. We have a serious conversation around early intervention, as you've already highlighted, around exposure. One of the things that we're trying to do as TAC is create a CBO council and really have real serious conversations. I was at the Mass Bio conference this month, and we were talking about there's 400,000 jobs as we speak. They have all this ARPA money, which comes from the federal government, and they got to spend it. And we need to be thinking and helping them think how they should spend it, so that when they do spend it, we don't get left out and look in the history books and say, they had that many billions of dollars and we didn't get nothing. That's what we need to do. Create meaningful workforce development pipelines. We've been looking at models all across the country. San Antonio just works. San Antonio works. It's an exciting program. I think that other cities who've been doing great work. Boston has to get into a place where we're thinking about the major sectors that are here and giving our children the opportunity. Here's the other reality. Every kid might not want to go to biotech. And we gotta acknowledge that as well. And so we should have that kind of empathy and humility as we come towards this conversation to know that there's some kids who are gonna be English majors and we're gonna play college football and going on to the village school, find themselves back home and sit right in front of you at some point. Like that's me. And so that every kid will be, drawn towards being a doctor or lawyer or nurse or practitioner in that way. However, we do need to make sure that the option is there. And right now, there are not enough clear, strong paths to make sure that happens. And so I can commit to you that we're working on that attack, we're working on that 12 paths, we're working on that community. I know Chanel's been thinking about all of those different aspects of economic development. And I think hopefully within the next few years, we can see some things change. And your question will be the same.
Yeah. So I just want to say something really quick. So I'm the chair of workforce development here in the city of Boston. And when we talked about Madison Park back in the day, everybody always talked about Madison Park through education. I said, we're going to hijack the conversation. It's going to be a workforce development because that is where we need to really lean in when we're talking about building pathways for young people to have exposure. I've been working since I was 12 years old. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a hustler since the age of 12, right? We, as just a people, right, we have that fire in us to create opportunities that don't exist. Now, as the city, we have an opportunity and a responsibility in making sure that we're calling in employers who are setting shop here so that they don't forget. They're not doing us any favors. They have a responsibility to hire our young people, to create paid internships for our young people, right? And the other piece of that is that we also have to start thinking about, it's not just about accountability for the sake of accountability. We need to also engage young people in this process so they can define for themselves what are the type of careers and entrepreneurship options that they're looking for, because a lot of old folks are sitting in rooms and in spaces and designing plans that do not meet the needs of our youth today. So one thing that I'll say is last year we created a new line item in the city, and it was jobs for 19 to 24-year-olds, right? Because that's an age group that usually gets left out of the conversation. And this year we are fighting for housing stipends for 19 to 24-year-olds because you can't work unless you have a place to live. You can't live unless you have a place to work. And so these things, in terms of systemic barriers, we need to have a whole conversation about not just creating opportunities, but addressing the barriers that prevent young people from seeing the possibilities that exist beyond high school. And I think that is part of the process.
So, first of all, see above. Because I agree with what's been said. What I'll add to that is I really appreciate the work of our directors, who, especially on this issue around biotech, life science, ensuring that when we're talking to these companies, that there's a job at the end. Because there's all this conversation around training, but there's no guarantee that when people go through those programs, that there's something lined up at the end. The other piece is that we're also working with, and again, let's go to this question around barriers. A lot of times, again, it's not just about what we're doing to train people, it's also about, do they really need a 4-year degree to do this job? Do they really need this type of, requirement in order to have access to that job? So those are the conversations we're also having with employers, that you are setting people up. You're placing barriers that maybe people might even want to apply for this job. This family, the family sustaining wage $100,000 because you're putting things that aren't actually required. So lots of things we're doing to work together to this.
And just we're talking about meaningful jobs. There's a whole lot of jobs, but when people see that's not going to give me the lifestyle and sustain what I envision for my family and for my future, that's not encouraging to many folks. And so we need to have meaningful jobs. When we're talking about the middle skills, we're talking about people who can say, I can go here, I can work my career here, or give me options to transition in other spaces. I think that's what we need to have the conversation at, and make sure we're doing it in a way where all of us have the same conversation. And they're not going to one person saying one thing and going to another saying.
So they gave us the chop sign a few minutes ago. Couple of things. You all have been wonderful. You all have been a wonderful audience. I want to leave you with a few things that we think about as we're getting ready for our next session. I don't know where it will be. It'll be somewhere fun. It'll be somewhere soon, right? Once a month we're going to do evening. But think about this. In order for us to move to the places that we've been talking about, you heard the presenters, it's going to take some change of thinking. We're going to have to spend some time doing some re-educating, resetting in our own minds. What do I mean by that? How many of you in the last month saw an article that said, 15 units of housing were just approved from Franklin Park, and you clapped. You thought that was wonderful, right? It matters who's building them. Okay? Just remember, it matters who's building them. We can't have a wealth building conversation unless we have a rethinking of how we spend our own money. And I'll leave you with this number, 100, you all hear me talk about this a lot in the next month, $142 billion. Just remember that. That's 142 and 9 zeros. That's how much money our superstar congressional delegation delivered to Massachusetts in the last 26 months for COVID-related resources.
Say her name.
All of them, no? Congressman Neal is the chair of Ways and Means from Western Massachusetts. McGovern is from Lowell. He is the chair of the Rules Committee, one of the most powerful in the House. Catherine Clark from Lowell is the third in charge in line to be the speaker. And our Congresswoman, Ayanna Pressley, has delivered the dough. $142 million. Wait a minute, see y'all clapping. It's my point. You got any? You got any? You got any? That's my point. $142 billion delivered to the state for our state elected officials to go in the room and get our stuff. Somebody tell me where any place you look, you think you see somebody has spent $142 billion in this community. That's my point. Because remember what the president said, the governor says, that this money is for the vulnerable communities. Guess who that is? That's supposed to be Black and Latino folks. Why? Because we paid the dearest price during COVID. So we have to start checking at every step. Where is the money? Where is the money? Where is the money? That's right. And think about all the things we could do if we are that vigilant. And you talked about workforce development, hiring. How about hiring from a business that's owned by somebody that's in this room? You heard it said that women-owned businesses are the fastest growing population, but you need that support. It's out there. We gotta go get it. Sometimes it may require us challenging the very process of certification. I changed my whole thinking about it. I'm not a believer that Black and Latino businesses should have to certify, because I think the process has been used to identify who not to do business with. We couldn't do any worse if we just walked in the door, right? No, think about that. If the state of Massachusetts spends $4.8 billion and 11 million on Black businesses and 12 million for Latino businesses, we could have just walked in the front door and tried our hand, get the money like everybody else. We couldn't have done any worse. But we got this whole group of Black businesses who went through, paid all their money to get certified, sitting over there somewhere waiting for somebody to call. And the phone ain't never ringing.
Yeah, because who's gonna take care of that? That's not gonna happen.
Well, he goes looking for them.
I'm just letting you know.
I said state.
It's a new time, a new day, and we're about to go get our coins because we got the right people in office and we in positions of power to move the work forward.
Notice I didn't say state, because the city is on a whole new thing. You say Papa got a brand new bag, the city got a brand new bag right now. And he's in charge.
That's
That's it, folks. big information. So